Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Delvin Champagne, and I'm the Executive Director of the Consortium of HBCU Interdisciplinary Rehab Programs. And we're excited to be hosting this forum for World OT Day. We're excited to have a great speaker. She's a graduate of HBCU, and she's going to be starting momentarily. But again, thank you guys for joining this call. We're excited to be bringing the good news of OT practice globally. So we're going to start off with our chair of the consortium, Dr. Felicia Banks. Yes, Sam.
Thank you, Delvin. And I'm just gonna just welcome you just a few minutes because we really want to get to our keynote speaker. But just to let you know that our consortium is really dedicated to the promotion of research and program development that is germane to health disparities and center around historically Black colleges and universities. And we really want to uplift people who are interested and dedicated to addressing health disparities across the world. So not just at HBCUs, but certainly we embrace OTs across the world. And we know that we have so many people who have graduated from the various HBCUs that are placed in key places and are doing wonderful things, not just in our community, but globally. And so World Occupational Therapy Day 2024 was actually, the actual day was yesterday. The theme for this year's event is Occupational Therapy for All. How do you like that? What a blessing. Because occupational therapy is in fact for all. World Occupational Therapy Day really signifies occupational therapy for all, reflects the important role of the profession to facilitate the ability of individuals, communities, and populations to participate in activities that they want, need, or are expected to do in their daily lives. And so we really want to embrace that concept and theme today, but not just today, but every day in our practice. And please spread the word of the wonderful things that occupational therapists do, because as we know, the doctor might save a life, but the OT helps a person live again. I'm going to turn it back over to Delvin, who is going to introduce our amazing keynote speaker for today. Delvin, I'm turning it over to you.
I was speaking and wasn't on mute. I'm sorry. So I'm reading here, but we're looking forward. I'm so excited to introduce Lieutenant Commander Maya N. Bell. She is a native of Oakland, California. She attended the Howard University in Washington, D.C., where she received her bachelor's degree in occupational therapy in 2003. She later attended the George Washington University, also in Washington, where she received a master's degree in education and human development with an emphasis in special education in 2006. 2010, Dr. Bell, well, before she was doctor, she graduated with honors from Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with her doctorate in occupational therapy degree with an emphasis in early intervention and school-based practice. She is board certified by the National Board of Certification in Occupational Therapy, NBCOT. Dr. Bell was commissioned in the United States Navy in July 2014. Her duty station was at the Naval Medical Center in San Diego from 2014 to 2016 as an occupational therapist and division officer of the occupational therapy, physical therapy, and chiropractic medicine department with a focus on neuromuscular treatment and rehabilitation and upper extremity. Dr. Bell primarily served as an early intervention specialist in rehabilitation and feeding specialist in the neonatal intensive in the NICU. Dr. Bell has traveled extensively across the world, global practice, and with her, also she practiced at the U.S. Naval Hospital in Okinawa, Japan. I'm saying that right, Okinawa, Japan. She has a whole list of acronyms. We call it alphabet soup. All the great credentials, and she's been practicing globally. And we're happy that she's here. Our bio is extensive, but without further ado, we are happy to have Dr. Maya Bell. Give it up for Dr. Bell.
Thank you.
Dr. Bell, let me
I
get
feel
this
like that was
started.
my whole presentation right there. You just named
There you
everything
go.
that I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
Thank
Let
you
me get
for
this
that.
started. Let me share my screen.
Let's see, we'll start with my presentation.
Can you see right here? Can you see here?
Yes.
Okay.
So I really just wanted to be able to kind of talk to everyone about kind of different opportunities there are for OTs, and the Navy being one of them. I don't think military OTs are really widely known, like when you're in school and you're learning about things. So really this is kind of what I wanted to do, to just give students or professors of students, you know, a opportunity to kind of understand some information about the Navy. So in the agenda, Delvin did an amazing job with the introduction. So, but just kind of go over some things about kind of how I started off in school, and then what I did as an OT, and then kind of how I transitioned into a naval officer and an OT as well.
I go again.
All right. Next slide. Can you make them a little bit bigger?
Oh, yes.
Please?
I'm sorry. Let me do it again. I'm sorry. A little bit, I apologize. Is that better?
Yes, thank you. We can go to the next slide. So just a little bit of background on me. Maya Bell, some of you I have known forever and seen. So glad that you were able to join in, and I hope to eventually one day meet everyone else that's on the call. I am originally from Oakland, California, born and raised. And as soon as I graduated high school, I darted off. I was gone. I probably left 2 weeks after graduation. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, 12 and 10, and been an OT for 22, almost 22 years now. 10 and a half have been with the Navy. Next slide, please. Please feel free to stop me at any point of me talking if you have any questions or want to know any additional information. We also do have a question and answer at the end, but go back to that one. So kind of, so I left high school and went straight to Howard University. Got there in '98. This picture is of my amazing class. I had such a great class and classmates and instructors, some of which are on the call right now. So I kind of got my introduction to the Navy, or not the Navy specifically, but the military and kind of a second introduction to OT when I started at Howard. So we had freshman orientation as soon as everybody got there, and there was a Army program, ROTC program, and there was an Air Force ROTC program. Just as they were talking, I really liked the structure and the organization of everything that they were saying. I have no kind of prior family history in the military or anything like that, but I wanted to kind of explore those options. And so how I picked whether I was going to go to Air Force ROTC or Army ROTC was literally based on the color. My favorite color was blue at the time. So I was like, Air Force is blue. Let me choose Air Force. So that's how I went into, and I was in Air Force ROTC for about 2 years. But the Army ROTC was right down the hall from us. And they also had a lot of events and activities and things that they were doing. And then I had a cadet that was with me, Radia. She was also an OT classmate of mine. And we were talking about kind of what our careers path was going to be, what we wanted to do. I think she came in undecided. I came in as a dance major. And then a lot of people kind of talked me out of that. So then I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now. So we were talking and she was mentioning about OT, and then I had remembered it from a long time ago. Initially, when I was younger, about 9 years old, my mother was in an accident. She was in the hospital for about a year, and I was too young to go into the unit where she was. So she would like watch me from the window, and so there was a little park outside. And so for about a year, that's kind of how she saw me. I couldn't see her, but and then one day I was allowed to go in, and she was working with the OT. I didn't know what that was at the time, but she was working with the OT, and the OT let me join in. So she included me as part of the sessions. Again, I didn't know what it was. I just liked being involved. And she made me feel included in the healing and the progress that was going on. So when she mentioned that, when Radia mentioned that, I was like, I kind of remember that. And I really kind of like how she made me feel then. So I looked into that program. Fortunately, Howard had the OT program, and we had to select between a 2 or a 3-year program. And I was like, well, let me go ahead and do the 3-year program. So that's what I did, and I never regretted anything from it. So that was my experience with Howard. And then once I graduated from there, I worked for a little while. And then I decided to go back to school and get my master's in education and human development. Little did I know that that program was a teaching program. So I was required to teach after I graduated. So I ended up being a special education teacher for a few years. And then I really missed being in OT and kind of having a focused area. And so since I had been out for a couple of years, I was like, well, let me go back to school. So that's how I ended up at Temple in the doctorate program. Next slide, please. So a little bit of life before the Navy. You can go to the next slide. So originally I thought I wanted to go into mental health. In school, mental health was what I enjoyed, what I was passionate about, just kind of everything that we had learned about it. And then I had my field work, and I was like, maybe mental health is not for me. But I did really well in my FISDIS field work. So I was like, well, what do I want to do? And I knew after graduation, I really wanted to stay in the DC area. There was a place, I don't know if it's still there. I think they were changing the name, but it used to be called Hospital for Sick Children. And I was like, I want to work there. Well, when I graduated, I did not get a job there. So I was looking for different jobs, and there were no jobs hiring in that area. A lot of the people were like, you know, you need to have experience, or, you know, you're a new grad, and they weren't hiring new grads. So I was just looking everywhere and applying everywhere. So I found travel therapy, which I absolutely loved. I had an amazing experience. I got to go to a lot of different places with travel therapy. They, you know, ask you where you want to go. I guess different school. I worked in school based. They have them for hospitals, SNFs. They have them for everything. But in school based, it's where, you know, a company or a school does not have their own OTs at the time, whether that is medical leave, maternity leave. They just haven't been able to hire anybody yet. So they'll reach out to the contract company and ask if there's anybody willing to go to that place to work. So I've been to different places in California, different places in Georgia, all around the DMV. And sometimes I've stayed for 6 months. I think you're able to stay for up to 2 years. So that was really enjoyable. That was obviously before I had kids, so I was able to bounce around a lot. And I would just, you know, rent my furniture, keep just clothes with me, and I'd move around. So I think that's where my moving around bug came from, which later helped me when I did come into the military. I also worked as an early interventionist, which I enjoyed, kind of seeing the progress the little ones make, and then going into school later on. As I mentioned, I worked as a special education teacher for Prince George's County for a few years. That was an amazing experience too. I think that helped me become a better OT, because as a teacher, you not just focus on one area, you focus on all the areas in school and in teaching and learning. And so that helped me when I went back to OT, kind of looking at broader spectrum when I'm working with my kiddos. I also was an adjunct professor at a university in California. I started off as a fieldwork coordinator, did that for a couple years, and then went into being an adjunct professor at the same university, which was a great experience, which will later come in handy at the end of this presentation. I'll tell you why. Next slide, please. All right, so don't judge my picture. This was a long time ago. I think this might have been my second, maybe my second year in the Navy. So 20, I don't know what year that was, but this was a course that we did. So Navy OTs are not what we would call on the front line. We don't go to where the fight or the conflict is. We're kind of more on the rehab side. So this course for me was amazing because it gave me everything that I wanted to do in the Navy, why I joined the Navy outside of being an OT. So this course was called CHIRP, or Tactical Combat Casualty Care. And it's where you would learn how to do first aid in a combat situation. So bullets flying, blasts going off. How do you take care of a sailor that's injured right in the middle of that? So that's kind of what that course teaches sailors. We had, when we did our test, we had simulators of speakers with gunshots. They were kind of squirting fake blood everywhere. So to see how you would perform in high pressured situations. So I really enjoyed that course that they had. Next slide, please. So here I wanted to show a little video. Some of my coworkers created this video last year to give you a little overview of some aspects of Navy OT. This video was done in Okinawa, Japan at the Naval Hospital there. There's a part, the majority of the video, there's no audio, so I'll kind of explain to you afterward what they were talking about and what they were doing.
I'm gonna play it. I hope you can hear the sound. I checked the box earlier, so let me see how this goes. Raise your thumb if you can hear it when it starts. No sound?
You're good. I'll let the video play and then I'll kind of talk to you about everything.
Most important to them.
All right, so like I said, that was a video that was taken at the Naval Hospital in Okinawa.
Dear Dr. K, I used to think I was never meant to be beautiful. You work within my budget and help me feel confident
Hold
in the
on,
plan
it
we
goes
made
crazy. Give me a
together.
second.
I love my new smile.
Get the smile.
Give me 1 second. I'm going crazy here.
No worries, it's back up.
It is?
So that was at the Naval Hospital in Okinawa in the hand therapy department, where they do all of the upper extremity injuries and rehabs and splinting. And so two of the people that were talking were the department head there, which is like the supervisor of the department, as well as Captain Geislinger, who is an OT, but eventually we'll talk about the ranks a little bit later, but as you get further up in rank, you kind of come out of your clinical role and more into administrative role of being an administrator for the hospital. So she's now a CO, which would be like equivalent of the president of the hospital now. So she's kind of in the OT realm, you know, to keep up her skills, but she's not really practicing full time right now. And then they were showing, you know, some of the splints that they do and some of the treatment activities that they do at the hospital there. So when it's on me, there we go.
Oh, I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm back. Here we go. Good to go. Sorry.
All right, so I also kind of wanted to give a kind of brief on what programs are available for anyone interested in joining the Navy. I know every branch of the military has a different type of program. So for the military, there's a direct commission, which is what I did. It's after you've already graduated from an accredited OT program, and then you want to come into the military. So that's called a direct commissioning, where you come in after you've already been in OT. You can come in right after graduation. I worked for about 11 or 12 years or so, and then kind of decided to come in. And then there's the MSc IPP program, which is a program that is for enlisted personnel that's already in the military, who want to transition to become an OT. I have a few OT techs, which we call them here, which is like an OT assistant until they take their board for being a CODA, who want to be OTs. And so they've done this program, and then they are able to go to school 4 year, 5 year on Navy's dime. They pay for the whole program. And then when they graduate, then they become a commissioned officer. There's also the Health Professional Scholarship Program, which would be for a person who is currently in college right now, not in like an ROTC program, but they're in college and they're considering coming in. The Navy will pay you to finish out your school, pay for the remainder of the school, as long as you provide 2 years or depending on how long how many years they paid for your program if you pay that time back by being active duty services. So if anybody is currently in school and trying to decide what they want to do after school, this is a great program to look into because you'll get paid to go to school. Then there's also the Navy ROTC program. When I was at Howard, like I mentioned, we only had the Air Force and we had Army. You were able to go to another school. They had a kind of MOU with another school. I couldn't remember if it was George Washington or American University, but you would go to that school, take all your ROTC classes, and then you would come back to Howard. Then there's the Naval Academy, which is the university or the college for people who are interested in coming into the military. At the Naval Academy, once you get into like your junior year, I believe, that's where you can decide whether you want to go the Navy route or the Marine route, because the Marines are a branch of the Navy. So in medical, we take care of all of Navy as well as Marine Corps personnel. So we are their medical providers as well. Then once you've gone through any of these programs, then you would go to what's called ODS or Officer Development School for 5 weeks. And that's where, because you're already coming in with the knowledge of being an OT, so that's where you would learn how to be a naval officer. And once you're in the Navy, you're going to hear this a million times. You're a naval officer first, and then you're an OT. And so you go through 5 weeks of just kind of learning about how the military is structured. You learn about all the history of the military and its customs and traditions. You'll get a lot of acronyms. If I say anything in this presentation that you don't know, just jump in and stop me and be like, well, what does that mean? There's also where you get kind of your introduction into leadership development, because as an officer, you're responsible for all the techs, all the corpsmen, which are like the assistants in every single medical department. So being in the military or a naval officer is hugely about leadership, learning how to lead others. And then military etiquette, what to do, what not to do. There are a million rules of how we talk, how we dress. So kind of learning all of it there within that 5 weeks. Obviously, that's the foundational of it. Once you get into your command or your hospital, then you'll also learn by experience. A lot of us learn by doing the wrong thing, and you will quickly get corrected, and then you'll never do it again. So next slide. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of some of the rank structures that we had in the military. It's all hierarchical. Like you go from, on the far left is when you first come into the military for some of us. Then you go up to, you'll primarily see up to the 6th rank, which is the bird. That's a captain for us. Every branch has a different name for it, but all the insignias are the same, but you might hear it called something else in a different rank. So the majority of people who stay in the military till their 20-year retirement will usually get up to the captain rank. And then those that are gung-ho and want to go above and beyond end up going admiral, which are when you start to see the stars. And on the bottom, so that top row is for the officers. That bottom row is for the enlisted, and those are their ranks. They're called petty officers. So they have classes, your first class, second class, third class, of their rank structure as well. So later when I talk about kind of me in the military, we'll talk about some of the ranks that I was at the different duty stations. Next slide, please. So these are some of the locations that we have for OTs. Now, mind you, the Navy is worldwide. However, Navy OTs do not have as many locations as we would probably like to have. So these are all the stateside locations that we have. And then on the other side is all the overseas locations. So Guam, Okinawa, and mainland Japan. And in mainland Japan, we have a bunch of like smaller outlying clinics, but they're all connected to that first one, Yokosuka. So Yokosuka is the main hospital, and then all the other ones are like little branch clinics, all throughout, spread out throughout Japan. So in the Navy, there's about 30 OTs, about 30 of us, and there's 13 OT techs. So not every location will have a tech assigned to it. How we go to each locations is we rotate every 2 to 3 years. So we're all stateside for 3 years. And then the overseas locations, if you come with a family, then you'll be there for 3 years. Or if you come just by yourself, you'll be there for 2 years. And then really we see who's leaving from wherever at the same time that we're supposed to be leaving from somewhere. And then that's usually how we just rotate with each other of where we're going. Usually there's about 2 or 3 people leaving at the same month, year that you're supposed to be leaving from where you're at. So you'll see who's leaving and just pick the location that you want to go to. Usually the higher ranking person gets their first choice and then goes down from there as to where we go next. And these are some of the practice areas. What I really enjoy about being a Navy OT is the variety of skill sets and settings that we get to practice in. Because I feel like as a civilian, you can get pigeonholed in one area, or you'll hear like what I heard, you don't have enough experience in this area. And so you kind of get stuck in the area that you start out with. But in the Navy, you'll do probably almost all of these areas, so that when you do either retire or when you get out, you have the knowledge to apply for almost any job that you want in OT. So some of these are practice areas that we do. And then we also have some teaching billets. So you have one position where you can kind of take a pause on being in the Navy and they'll pay for you to go get your doctorate. They only do one person a year. So you'll get your, if you get selected, you can go to Baylor University and you'll get your Doctor of Science in Occupational Therapy. That's called a DUIN, so duty under instruction. So you're still active duty, but you're taking a break to go to school. And then there's also an instructor at the Corpsman Sea School, which is the OT assistant school. So that teaches them, it teaches general corpsmen, so general enlisted people who are in the medical field who choose to be an OT assistant. They go to school for a while, and then you can also be an instructor for that school as well. The ones I asterisked at the bottom, mental health and burns, that's part of what we learn in school and in practice areas that hasn't really been incorporated as Navy OTs just yet. So those are areas that we're kind of emerging for us because we're going to very operational, meaning kind of more of that frontline stuff, like what can we do immediately. So those are really important areas that we're trying to break into. There is a mental health team at some of the different hospitals. So some of them can be very territorial with it because they don't quite understand that OTs work in mental health as well. So a lot of education happens with the mental health team because some of them are like, it's mine, why are you trying to encroach on mental health? And others are very welcoming, like we need help if you have any ideas, classes, groups that you want to do, they're more than welcome to do that. So that's kind of how we start introducing ourselves more into different areas. And then also the same with burns. That hasn't been really a forefront for Navy OT, but we're trying to get it there. So if you're interested in those two areas and kind of want to make a huge impact in the direction of Navy OT, we're all welcome. Next slide, please. So this one I wanted to talk about some programs that an OT developed while being in the Navy. Developing a program in the Navy is very difficult. Like, it has to go through the whole chain of the government up to Congress to get approved. So that can kind of deter some people from like starting a program. But there was an OT who was very, very determined. And so she got these programs up to an actual pilot program, which a Navy OT actually piloted it at one of the locations. One of them is called the SPEAR program. And I told her I wouldn't screw it up. So I'm gonna read a synopsis of kind of each of the programs that she developed. So the SPEAR program takes different individual approaches. So the chaplains, they take the dietitians, they take OTs, and then they take NOFs, which is like the Navy's fitness program, and they combine that into a unified system. And then it targets behaviors that contribute to a culture of excellence through toughness, through trust, through connectedness. And so you get all of that within these different individual approaches that come together. So we did pilot it for 1 year and it got great, amazing reviews. But unfortunately, it didn't kind of get the acknowledgement that we wanted for it to be kind of developed throughout the whole entire Navy. They do have one called Warrior Toughness, which is kind of similar to this program, except they kind of took the dietitian and they took occupational therapy out and they added in psychology in that area. I know the Army, I want to say, has this same type of program, and they do include a lot of their OTs in that program. There's also the OASIS program. It's in a 6-week curriculum of different OT type interventions that coordinate the teaching, tracking of kind of like the functional outcomes. And the goal of it is to reduce the frequency and severity of combat and operational induced PTSD experienced by active duty members. So she created this curriculum and in conjunction with the mental health team. She was over the suicide prevention program, and so she kind of really worked with the mental health team to develop this. During COVID, she also came up with a COVID stress management workbook, and it's a self-paced workbook that helps manage stress and strengthen resiliency and coping abilities during COVID. Again, it's another 6-week self-paced program. It gave exercises and activities to kind of help everyone's mental health during the pandemic, when it was just pure and utter chaos during that time. And then she also did the COVID-19 or the Holiday Connections campaign. So there was 4 different holiday events. And then that one she did in conjunction with the suicide prevention program. And it just provided activities like arts and crafts, baking, fitness, some hope activities for people of all ages. And it was just interested to, support the community and provide that connection to increase resiliency during the holiday season. Because during COVID, holiday season was very stressful for almost everyone, especially the junior people. So sometimes overseas, you get very young sailors and Marines who go overseas. This is their first time away from home. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. So getting home was difficult. And then you add COVID on top of that, where they couldn't go home. And it was just a lot of stressful people during that time. So she kind of came up with these ideas and activities and tasks to help with that. Then at the bottom is her little personal project of a book series that she's doing to kind of help with social emotional support for the young kids about ages 2 to 5 years old. It's going to be 12 series in the book. This is the first one that she had just did, and I think the second one is coming out within the next month or so. So it's a called Big Feelings Little Body series. So they'll have confidence, they'll have regulation, they'll have coping, they'll have resiliency. So if you get a chance, they're on Amazon, so check those books out. Next slide, please. I wanted to include this one in because this is a big one for us, is the Navy hospital ship. So essentially you have hospitals that are floating on water. These particular two, the USNS Mercy and the USNS Comfort, are provided or are there for humanitarian assistance. So anytime a natural disaster happens, they send out the hospital ships to help the people there. And sometimes we just go to kind of show a support, provide necessary medical equipment, to have a partnership with these places that we go to, and just give efforts to show our support for them. So these are some of the services that we can provide from the hospital ships. We do that. We can do some of them on the ship. We also go out to their local clinics and provide some of these services as well. Next slide, please. So these are pictures of the Mercy and the Comfort. They're large, large ships. The Mercy is out of San Diego and the Comfort is out of Norfolk. As you can see, they're very old ships, but they're still going. It takes a very long time to get from one place to the next. They go about 20 miles per hour. So going from one island or one country can take weeks to get to. They have a big crew that goes with them, and they have about 1,000 patient beds, 80 ICU, patient wards, operating rooms, radiology suite. So they essentially have a whole hospital on these ships that they can do operations and surgeries and care for patients until they get to their next location. Next slide. So these are some of the places that the Mercy and the Comfort have been to in their humanitarian assistance missions. The Mercy's humanitarian mission is called Pacific Partnership, and the Comfort's is called Continuing Promises. As medical providers, you know, they have a staff that kind of go. Unfortunately, OTs are not part of that staff, but they do talk about, they do send us to a specific location for about 2 weeks. They send us to a specific location for about 2 weeks to provide OT care to these locations. But unfortunately, we're not on the extent of the deployment, which could be 3 to 5 months or so, which would be really nice. So this ship right here is our newest ship. It's going to be 3 ships that are called our EMS ships, our expeditionary medical ships. So those are ships that they are building starting next year in preparation for anything that may happen war-wise. So these are going to be our war medical ships because they're able to get to and from places much quicker. So these go about 35 miles per hour. They have search and recovery. They can do a combat search. They can land the helos or the helicopters on the back. They can stabilize patients. They can take on casualties, and they're the same. They have a medical operating capabilities, but they're a little bit smaller in those because they're not meant to be a long-standing ship. So look forward to those in the coming years between 2025 and 2027. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are really just my experience in the different locations that I've been to since I joined the Navy in 2024. That was my commissioning, pictures of my commissioning ceremony. So that's when I first got inducted into the military. And that was my recruiter. She was great. Next slide, please. So these are some of the commands I've been to, and I'll go into each one. Next slide. So I started my career in the Navy at Medical Center of San Diego, also known as Balboa. It's one of the bigger naval hospitals that we have. I was there from 2014 to 2016. I primarily worked in the NICU there. And I came in because I did the direct commission program. So when you do the direct commission, they give you credit for time that you've already worked. And so they give you credit for how many years you've already been an OT. So I came in as a lieutenant, which is about 3 ranks in from where some people kind of initially start off at. And it was a good experience. I had not worked in the NICU before. It was a interesting experience. I got a lot of training. I was the only naval officer that had ever worked in the NICU before. Normally they have civilians that work in that position. And then I also worked in the inpatient side as well. Next slide. Then I transferred to Naval Hospital, Okinawa, Japan. So I've spent the majority of my career, probably 9 of the 10 years overseas because I enjoy it that much. So I started off in Okinawa. I was the head of the EDIS department, which is the Educational and Developmental Intervention Services. We do the school-based and the early intervention. I was fortunate enough because this is my background. My background is in pediatrics. And so I was able to continue to work in pediatrics as a Navy officer. We had play groups, we had lunch and learns. This middle picture is, yes, me in a bucket because the kid wanted to fill me with toys. So that's what I did, in uniform and all. And it was a great experience. I had a great team. I learned a lot. I learned my love for Japan. I never knew that I never thought about going to Japan before. And once I got there, I did not want to leave. And so next slide, I asked to stay in Japan. So I went from a small island like that's south of Japan to the main island of Japan. And there I was at it's called NMRTC, or Navy Medicine Readiness and Training Unit, Iwakuni. It was one of those branch clinics that I was talking about. So a small clinic in a part of Japan. That's where I got my promotion from lieutenant to lieutenant commander. I was also the head of their EDIS program. Same program, just different location. And it was a great experience. I was very sad to leave Japan and hope one day the Navy will send me back there. Next slide. Which brings us to where I am currently in Guam. So I continue to be a lieutenant commander. I'm also the associate director of the branch clinic. So all the branch clinics that we have out here, I'm over. Department head of the OT and PT department in the hand therapy clinic. So this is my first hand therapy position. So learning a lot of that area and also working in inpatient. I love these pictures because this is the view that I get every single day. There's always a little rainbow and bright skies. It never gets below about 80 degrees here year round. So it's hot and sunny and beautiful all year round. So if you like that kind of weather, this is the best place to be for that. So I'm gonna do a quick go through the rest of them quickly because the next slide is future. And so I don't know much of what's gonna happen in the future, but I'm scheduled to leave here. I've done my almost 3 years here. You can go to the next slide. I've almost done my 3 years here, and so I'm scheduled to go to San Antonio, Texas next, July of 2025, where I'll be instructor at the schoolhouse, and that teaches CODAs, or teaches sailors who want to be CODAs. So that'll be interesting. It's a combination of Army and Navy, so they have different programs for each of those students. So I'm excited to know what's different. Due to the time, I was gonna have my OT assistant kind of talk about her field work experience. but I've gotten my question and answers text. So we'll kind of skip over that unless anybody kind of wants to hear her experience there.
Yes, no, so it's not a rush. I was just telling the folks in the attendees to have questions ready, but no rush. We would love to hear what
Okay,
she.
We'll have her just talk quickly kind of about her experience as coming as a general duty corpsman to a going to the school, and then how kind of her experience was in OTA school. This is HMC school, sorry. This is HM2 Alexis Hawkins.
Hi everybody, I'm HM2. A little bit about my experience, like ma'am said, been in the Navy for 9 years. I didn't start off as a corpsman, but I did get to strike, what we call it. I struck as a corpsman, so I went to Corps School in San Antonio, went to my first duty station in Pensacola, and I worked as an anesthesia tech. Had no idea what OT was. It was not in my pathway. I was not looking for it, but I knew I wanted to go to a T school. I was trying to go to PT school. My detailer at the time was like looking through my record and was saying, hey, no, I think you're a better fit for OT. And I was like, no, I want to go to PT. Like, let me just go that route. But I'm actually very grateful for him for that, because since then I've been like, okay, what's OT? Let me find out everything I could before school. Went to school, back to San Antonio. So I know on the outside is a 2-year program, but in the Navy, because we're on an accelerated program, 9 months. I finished the school in 9 months. Very fun, very challenging. If I had time for food, I don't remember because we were testing almost every week. It was 10 of us in the class. I still talk to my classmates to this day. After I finished school, I went right over to Japan. So I was in the Asugi area. So we covered Asugi and Camp Zama, occasionally Yokota sometimes. And that's where I met now. Love Japan. In school, I kept saying, I want to go to PEDS. I want to go to PEDS. So I got a clinical site in PEDS, and then was fortunate enough to get sent to Japan to go to PEDS. Be careful what you wish for, because 3 years of PEDS, I was like, I don't want to go back to PEDS. I got my fill. I'm good with PEDS. And then now I'm here in Guam. 2 reasons I came here. The sun is out every day. I love that. And ma'am was here. When I met ma'am, I was like, oh yeah, we have to work together. So I'm happy that she's here. I'm sad she's leaving. I'm trying to convince her to take me with her. I have 2 years here, but I like outpatient. Terrified of splints. I'm doing them, but in my head, I'm not. So I don't know. OT, I love it. I don't know what else you guys want to know.
And she's going to apply to OT school.
That part. That part.
That's a big part.
That's a big part. That's where I am right now. On to grad school to go to OT.
Thank you. So yeah, she was my tech in Japan, and I was fortunate enough to get her to be my tech in Guam as well. And now she's going to be an OT, and I'm excited for her. And then next slide, which I believe is the wrap up summary. Next slide. The next one. Just in general, like I have truly enjoyed my time here in the Navy. People always ask you, I think one of the first questions people ask you are you going to stay in? Are you going to do your 20? And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. Like there's a lot that comes along with this, but there's a lot of reward with it as well. When you know that you're helping people who are putting their lives on the line every day, and if they get injured, you are a part of that recovery process to get them back out there. It just does something to you, and you want to be able to continue doing that. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful to share everything with everyone that joined in today. And if there's any students or teachers who know of students, I'm all ears, because I want us, as in like the HBCU community, to know there are different options out there. I know we go through kind of phys, mental health, and then as I've kind of been an OT, more things are coming up, different holistic approaches, and you can put OT in almost anything that you do, any enjoyment that you have can somehow be incorporated into OT. And so I'm loving the work that I'm doing. I'm loving the training that I'm getting for whenever I do retire and continue on my career path. So thank you all for joining in, and I'm open to any questions that you have. Hopefully I can answer them. If I can't answer them, send me an email, which is on the next 2 slides, I think. And I will definitely direct you to the person who does have that answer for you.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. You see here, can I copy this stuff? Oh, I can copy it. I'll put it in the chat so it's easy so we can move forward. That's easier. Put it in the chat. If you want her contact information, there it is right there. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and then we are going to, I guess we're going to open it. We're going to open it up. Dr. Banks, I'll turn it back over to you for a little while. Dr. Banks, any start off with commentary?
Well, I am just so impressed with your life story and journey as an OT, and I hope it inspires many of our students and clinicians and academicians and everyone to know the complexity that is involved in becoming an OT, but just taking on the challenge of going into the military and traveling abroad. And I guess one of the questions that I want to start off, and please put questions in the chat for Maya. We're just amazed at how you entered and accelerated into an administrative position and continue to keep your skills and practice at the same time. And can you tell us a little bit of how that works, the way you entered and kind of came into an administrative position so soon, but you practiced all those years? And that was kind of interesting, because a lot of times you hear people graduating and they go into the military, but you practice so many years. And we've got people here who've been practicing 10 years and they might say, hey, I want to go into the military now. So tell us how that worked and how you kind of went right into an administrative job so rapidly. That's very prestigious and impressive.
Thank you. So I was in ROTC, so that kind of gave me the interest. That's where my interest started. And then life started lifing, and I didn't finish, but I was like, I felt like it was always something missing. I felt like I started something that I didn't complete, and I didn't like that feeling. So eventually, I was working, and then there was a time where I was like, let me just try the military again. And so you go to a recruiter, they get you all set up. It took a long time, but then I eventually just did it. So it wasn't anything specific. I loved how being in ROTC was, and I wanted to complete that task. So I just decided to go back one day. And I think they accept people up to age 41. So if you're still interested in it, you've been working, you have the experience, that's kind of what they're looking for, is people with experience, because when you come in, you're going to start, you're going to go. There is a learning time, but they're looking for people who are leaders and who are initiators and who can come in and start working. So that's what I did. And as you build up rank and as you build up seniority and experience, that's when you start applying to more administrative jobs. So I applied as a department head. You kind of get, which is the supervisor of your department, from being in leadership positions. And then after department head is being a director. And so once I got here and I felt comfortable in the Navy process, I felt comfortable in my job. And then I decided to apply for being a director of the branch clinics. And my first year I did, I applied for director of public health, because in the military, like I was saying, you're a naval officer first, and then you're a clinician. And so as a naval officer, you have a bunch of other jobs that you have to do. So I applied to be director of public health. I didn't get that. And the following year, I applied to be the director of branch clinics, which I fortunately did get. And it's been a wonderful learning experience because now you have to know more than just your job. I have to know everybody's job in the branch clinic. I have to know radiology. I have to know pharmacy. I have to know family medicine. I have to know pediatrics, dental. So you have to learn all these other things outside of your job. It kind of takes you out of your box, which was good for me because I can be very kind of focused. Like I was like, I'm a pediatric therapist. I want to stay in pediatrics. But the Navy kind of gladly forces you to kind of come out of your comfort zone and come out of your box and learn other things. And once you start knowing on a director level of how the hospitals function, that's when you can start kind of, some people choose to be on a path of being the XO or the CO or like the vice president or the president of hospitals.
Extremely impressive, extremely impressive. So there's a question in the chat box from Dr. Covington. I don't know, do you know Frederick Covington, Dr. Covington?
Of course I do. We graduated together.
I look at that picture.
Did you see that picture?
You have a lot of familiar faces in that picture.
I can't see everyone. Let's see.
So
Fred's off camera.
speaking of the SPEAR program, do you think a similar program would be beneficial for civilians?
I do. I think it could help absolutely everyone because it looks at what we do is like the holistic approach to a person. It takes in their spiritualness, it takes in their physical, their nutrition, it takes in their mental health, dietitian, just everything, and it combines it and see how you can be a better version of yourself, kind of incorporating all these aspects. So I think it could definitely be beneficial in a civilian sector.
Miss Clay, well, look, we like to call her Doctor, right? Clayonia Colbert Dorsey. I know that's a familiar name to you. She
Absolutely.
is. Well, Miss Dorsey, I'll let you ask your question here. This is in the chat.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm eating. That's why I don't have my camera on. But let me turn my camera on, Maya.
I know it's late for y'all. It's morning for me. It's what's today? Tuesday morning for me here. So I know it's late for you guys. So thank you.
And it's dark because my house is real dark. It looks like I don't have any lights on. I just want to say, Maya, I am so, so proud of you and all that you have accomplished. And I don't want to get misty and emotional because I remember when you were walking the halls of OT. Thank you for your service. And I convey those same sentiments to Alexis. Is that who you had your
Yes.
To both of you? Thank you for your service, what you are rendering to our country and to those who serve, particularly in light of all of the conflict that is happening around us. The question that I have for you, and I apologize if you addressed this early because I came into the conversation late, but as a graduate of the Howard OT program, how would you say that coming from the Mecca has prepared you for the journey which you've undertaken? And I'm gonna sit back and listen.
Let me tell you, it was everything to me in my OT journey, and all of you, all of the staff, my classmates, because coming from Oakland, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was not on a great path. I know I've had plenty of conversations, probably with everyone, more than I'm sure she would like with Miss Bentley, like, what are you doing? Focus yourself, like get on track. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Even though I was in the program, I was like, is this for me? And I had that support, like I had that true support system coming from there. And then when you compare that to another university that I've been to, and you just see the difference, you're like, I miss that. I needed that to keep me going. And that's what I look back on every time I'm struggling with something, or every time I'm like, ooh, do I want to do another 10 years of this? I think back to those days and every one of you guys that kind of helped me through the program and actually graduate, and be like, yes, you can do this because you have a support system.
Thank you, Maya. Appreciate it.
I see someone had their hand up. Justina
Yeah.
Williams. Justina Williams. You can jump in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for speaking today. I'm a second-year OTD student at George Washington University, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on your transition from working as a civilian OT into the military OT and how that differed in terms of your work environment and lifestyle changes.
The work itself was not very different. I think the work itself was pretty much the same. The thing I struggled with was the military side of it. So the rank structure, because rank is everything in the military. So there's things you can't say to certain people, there's things you can't do. And coming from a civilian, you're like, but why? Like, why can't I do that? That's how I've always done it. And so kind of learning to adapt to the military culture was difficult for me in the beginning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
But after a while, you get used to it. Some people get used to it. Some people, the military has its benefits. It's been beneficial to me and a lot of other people. But like with any other job, it may not be for everyone. Some people don't like being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Like the enlisted staff, like they have room inspections, or they have to eat lunch at a certain time, a certain way. And so some people just don't ever adjust to that. And so they try it out and they find out it's not for them. But what I always tell people is to kind of, if you come into it, use it to your advantage. Like the military has great opportunities. If you're on a path, like the military can help you get there. If you want to go back to school, the military pays for schooling. They have like tuition assistance, or you can kind of there's so many things and programs where even if this is not for you, there's ways and there's programs and there's things that you can take advantage of being in the military that you may not necessarily have access to, or might be expensive as a civilian.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question in regarding why in the Navy you showed some of the places where OTs are. Why is it so heavily weighted in like Japan and Asia and in Guam? There are several locations in the U.S., but if it's global, why there no more OT locations? I'm just curious. What's the rationale and reasoning behind that?
So we have, each branch kind of has a region of the military. Navy really has the Indo-Pacific region. I think it's Army that has maybe like Europe region. So there's other OTs. So Navy has OTs, Air Force has OTs, and Army has OTs. And so they're kind of separated by region. So other branches may have that region in OT.
I just wanted to say, you mentioned Jerry Bentley, who was one of your professors. She's on the call and she's sending love to you. But Dr. Sherry Scott is also on the call, and I don't know if she's available. She's over in Japan. So she's really excited to connect with you. Remember Dr. Sherry Scott?
Yes, ma'am. So I wish I was still there. I think when I saw her daughter post that she was moving there, I was like, oh, I wish I was still there. I would come to wherever you are. Like getting around Japan is super easy. And so if I was still there, which I might be in February if you're still there.
Ah, I am actually in Tokyo for about another 4 weeks. And it was just such a wonderful, just to hear that you are in the area. and I noticed that it said Guam, but you're not exactly here, but you're pretty close by, and it would be wonderful just to connect with you. And so how do you like being in this Pacific area? How do you like that?
I love it. I love, like, it's so, as far as travel, that's probably the one thing that is amazing about the military. You can travel everywhere. And so being that the Indo-Pacific area is so close to so many countries, like
Mhm.
me and the kids would just travel to, we've been almost everywhere that you can travel to in this area, and it has been amazing. Guam is amazing. It's beautiful. Japan, their flag, I don't know if you guys know the flag, but it's a red circle, and it's
Yes.
called the land of the rising sun because their sunsets and their sunrises are one of the most amazing sights that you can see. So I absolutely love being out in this area.
Right. And even the Mount Fuji area, there's so much to do here. And just you being here in the area, it's just you're serving your service, and then what you're providing for the clients. So when you're in Guam, what setting, I know you mentioned pediatrics. What are you at a particular hospital there, or where are you working out of, or in terms of
Yes. So
as an administrator?
in Guam, I'm at the Naval Hospital. There's one
Yeah.
Naval Hospital. There's 3 hospitals here. One is the Navy hospital. So I am stationed here at the hospital, and I'm primarily in the hand therapy clinic.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you are most needed. Thank you for what you're doing, and congratulations on your just how you've been promoted to so many ranks. So you have been a wonderful asset to occupational therapy. It's time for you to become a FOTA as well.
Thank you. That's the goal. One day. One day.
I'll turn it back over.
I want to recognize someone on the call, Natalie Chang, right? She's works with LTA, DEI committee chair. She went through the Naval OTA program. You want to share your experience with that, Natalie?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm not gonna turn the camera on because I'm in bed. It's been a day, but I wanted to say thank you for sharing your experiences being in the military. I was in the Army actually and went through that program at Fort Sam, well, what used to be Fort Sam Houston in 1990, and I joined when I was 17 years old, so it was quite a shock to my system. Um, Not having any military experience, neither of my parents were in the military, but I will say it was the best decision that I could make at the young age of 17 years old to become an occupational therapy assistant. And although the rigor of the training is it's almost unimaginable. That you have to, you're in school learning a skill to become an occupational therapy assistant, in addition to learning how to be an effective soldier, and learning leadership skills and things like that. So, it's not oftentimes where I encourage people to seek careers in the military, not for any bad reasons, just that I know it's not the place for everyone, but for those who are truly curious and interested. I think maybe joining the reserves or the National Guard would be a great way to make a decision as far as whether you wanted this to be a temporary or a permanent thing. But the military provides so many great opportunities for education and leadership and travel, which was my number one objective. When I joined, I wanted the opportunity to travel, and I had the opportunity to live in Germany for 4 years. as a result of that. Never got to Asia or any of those other places, but I did enjoy the experiences that I received, and did a lot of work in hand therapy. I think that's one of the areas that the military shines. But thank you very much for sharing your experiences, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
I agree with
Natalie.
You have a hand up.
Yeah,
Genesis
Genesis.
has your hand up. You want to ask your question?
Hi, good evening, Dr. Bell. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for your service to you and HM2 as well. And also to you, Dr. Wright, thank you for your service as well. It really is inspiring to hear your experience because my experience is like kind of backwards. So I grew up in a military family. My dad is a retired senior chief. And then I commissioned through OCS, and then I did 5 years in the Navy, and then I got out to go to Howard for OT school. So people kind of ask me questions, and I guess I just need more clarification because my understanding of it isn't like super clear. For the military paying for school, do they have to get into an OT program first? Is that like by using TA or GI Bill? Because it seems like the HPSP scholarship doesn't cover OT school. And then also, does the public service loan forgiveness also apply after the 10 years? Sorry, that was a lot.
So that's okay. So the first one, yes, for the health professions scholarship program, if you are already in an accredited OT program, then and you want to come into active duty, so they have regular recruiters and they have medical recruiters. I would definitely recommend speaking to a medical recruiter. Sorry, you switched. I would definitely recommend speaking to a medical recruiter. They know more about all the medical specific recruitment programs. But I just had somebody, so I'm on the board for people interested in coming into Navy OT. So I do their interviews and things like that. So I just had one that did have that came through that program, and they're paying, I think they pay them as like a E6 or E7 until they finish school. So you're getting paid, and then you're getting the remainder of your school paid for, whatever you haven't finished, you have left.
Oh, nice.
And then you mentioned what was your second question?
Like I know people can use TA and the GI Bill. Does
Yes.
the 10-year, the public service loan forgiveness, does that apply as well?
It absolutely does. So military, and I am 100% glad to say just last week, I got my zero. I owe zero left on my student loans. So I can definitely say that program works.
Yay, that's
so
awesome.
Once you get in, apply for it, your 10 years starts, or you can actually backdate if you have like you have to every year you have to kind of reapply or re-show that you're working in some type of public service field. And then after 10 years, they send you a letter that say, hey, you're at your 10-year mark, and submit your last one that says you're done. And then I checked my thing and it said zero balance.
That's awesome. And I did have one more about the CONUS and the OCONUS. What is the likeliness of getting your preference, like in terms of location that you want? Like,
it would be preference as far as who's moving during the time you're moving. So it wouldn't be just like, look at the list, let me pick where I want to go. You would have to say I got here July of 2022. So I'm leaving July of 2025. So let me look at the list of OTs and where they're at and see who's also leaving in July of 2025 or in that time frame. And then that's what I would be able to choose from. So you can pick within that what your preference is, or there's people that kind of put everybody where they're supposed to be, called detailers, and you can let the detailer know even beforehand, be like, oh, I see that this person is leaving at the same time I am. Can you kind of put me down for this? So that way they know that this is where you want to go next.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a few minutes left. There are a couple of questions in the chat. Desiree, if you want to come off, you can ask a question. Hello. Do they pay for your loans if you work for the VA hospital? Is that how's that apply if it's federal? But VA is not considered enlisted. So Desiree, you want to ask a question more specifically? You want to ask it, Desiree? If I'm saying it wrong.
Yes, hello, how are you? Thank you for your service and thank you for this presentation as well. I thought it was really insightful. I heard that if you work for the VA as an OT, that they pay your loans off within 10 years. Is that a thing or how does that work?
Is that the same program that you were talking about, the health service? I don't know, it's called health services loan. Is that the same one, or the VA pays it off?
I think the VA pays it off if you work for them for 10 years.
I'm not sure specifically about the VA, but if the list is considered health professions, you can get the program that we were just talking about. That will get paid off in 10 years, but they have like a list of requirements of what's considered public service and what's not. So if you contact them, and you can see if the VA is considered, which I'm pretty sure it might be, because there's a government section on there as well, then that would be considered part of that student loan repayment.
Yeah, the health professions program is applicable to, any practitioner that can verify that they meet those criteria as a health profession. And then they have a VA loan, what do they call it? Loan forgiveness program that is more specific, I think, to VA. They also have a program where you can verify that you're working with the underserved population. And I think you have to show demonstration that you work for the underserved population for 5 years for loan forgiveness. And then there's one for academicians, for people who are educators, and they have a loan forgiveness program for that. So the bottom line is, you guys who are in school and you have student loans, you need to look at these loan forgiveness programs, because you need to figure out which one you qualify and start to keep your records, because you've got to show verification, that you're meeting these requirements. And the military has some of the best benefits ever. VA, because once you retire, you become a veteran, right? So you get those benefits. So some of those benefits are great, but look at the loan forgiveness programs across the board, because you'd be surprised if you go and you work for underserved population you meet the criteria for 5 years, you may be able to apply for a loan forgiveness program for that just in itself. So look at those things. That's very important.
I wanted to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Delvin.
Real quick, we got a few minutes. I wanted to recognize one of the brothers in OT, brother Joshua Day. He's also did OTD through the military, I think the Army. Joshua, can you tell us quickly about your experience?
Yeah, sure. Well, hello everyone. Good evening. Yeah, so I've finished OT school back in December 2022, actually, and I applied for the Army OT program, active duty. And I went through the whole process, and I actually got waitlisted, or they call it OML'd, and I had to wait another year. So during that time, I got just some experience in different settings. And then recently, actually, I just got called back up by the medical recruiter that you were referring to. And we kept in contact through the whole process. And she said, hey, this slot just opened up. If you're still interested, they want you to know you wanted to know if you're still interested, but we have to find out within the next 24 hours. So it was a little tense. I'm like, oh, I like where I'm at now. I have a new job. This is a huge decision I have to make. So let me speak to my family and everything. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take it for sure. And yeah, this is like maybe like 2 months ago. We spoke to the recruiter. I accepted the slot that was open. So right now I'm going through the whole process of like getting the paperwork and everything done. So it'll be active duty OT Army. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Good work.
Nice.
So guys, we got about 3 minutes left. I'm getting ready to put the link to the certificate in the chat, but I did want to just hear something lighthearted so we end on a high, on a fun note. If Frederick could come off and just tell us about any fun times you had in OT school as a classmate. Fred, come on off and give us a few words.
Whoa.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. If I had to reflect back on something that I remember sitting in the back of the Dr. Banks Phys Disc classroom back in the right-hand corner, and Dr. Banks always telling Maya and I to be quiet because we talked a lot. And so I remember that specifically, and just remember good times in the classroom, our ups and downs in musculoskeletal anatomy, neurology, kinesiology. We went through it, but we got through it, and our entire class has prospered. And I'm so glad to see Dr. Bell doing her thing.
Trying to be like you when I grow up.
And Dr. Bell, for all the students who might want to go into the military from OT school, what would you like to recommend to them?
As far as
they're in the military, I mean, they're in OT school now, and they're thinking about going into the military when they graduate, or should they start to apply while they're in school if they want to go into the military? What would you recommend?
Either, like if that's something that that you want to do, or even if you're kind of still deciding, talk to one of the medical recruiters. That way that you can have all the information, you're well informed, and you can make the decision that's right for you. But I think about it like sometimes when I was like, oh, I should get out, I'm like, your housing is free, your medical is free, your dental is free. Like, you can't beat that. And you're doing a job that you love every day in a lot of amazing places that you can travel to either on your own, or there's a lot of conferences that they'll send you to. So you're traveling to all these other countries on the Navy's dime. Like, take advantage of as much as you can. Like, it is well worth it to at least look into it and get all the information about it.
Thank you so much. We're just delighted to be able to celebrate World OT with Dr. Bell and the consortium, and we're just so happy. Thank you so much for sharing with us your journey as an OT in the military and all of the wonderful things that you have been able to experience. And I'm going to turn it back over to Delvin to close us out.
Thank you, Dr. Banks. So guys, I put the link to the CE certificate in the chat. I'm just going to just say, please print this because this is on the honor system. So this link won't be up very long. So when you get the link, if you can just print it off or save it to your computer, like within the next hour, because we're going to take it down. So it's in the chat again.
Half an hour, the next
yeah.
half.
Yeah, next half an hour. By now, we'll take it down. And we can't have this floating around, because this is all the honor system. So you just print it off and save it for your records. So you want to petition your licensure board for your Cs. In DC, this is 25 is the renewal year, so this is a good time. So yeah, that's about it, guys. So thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting the CHIRP organization as we keep building and growing, trying to expand and market and publicize and bring awareness to HBCU OT programs. And so thank you. So with that, Then any last commentary, any last words? We're gonna
I just wanted to thank
go ahead.
everyone for staying up and listening to me talk about this and, you know, give you the information, talk to you about my journey. Thank you to all my teachers and admin staff and my classmates for coming on here and for helping me get to this point. Because if it was not for you guys, I'm not quite sure where I would be. So thank you all.
Absolutely. And then if I didn't, I would be remiss if I didn't just recognize a representative from the AOTA board. Brother Andre, if you want to say a few words on behalf of AOTA, you can just say something quickly.
Hi, Delvin. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for your presentation tonight. It was outstanding. And thank you also, HM2 Alexis Hawkins, for your contributions as an OT assistant. All I wanted to say is thank you so much, Delvin, for putting this together with CHIRP as well. And I hope I have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, guys, we'll close it out. And so you guys have a good evening, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Stay on, Dr. Bell and Dr. Banks. We can just close it out. Let me start recording here.